Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Today we are going through and breaking down the top 10 best weapons in Warzone in a specific order, number 10 to number 1. And I think this is always a really good basis going into a new season, obviously with season 3 on the horizon, to really go into the next update and say, okay, we've got this many different weapon changes with the patch notes. How much did things actually change? The top 10, for instance, are there 5 new weapons and that's a pretty drastic meta update, or are there 2 new weapons and maybe the top 3 shifted around and just reordered themselves, right? So as we go through everything today, if you enjoy the video, do me a favor, drop a like on it. It's always really appreciated. And if you are new to the channel or you simply have not subscribed yet, feel free to change that, hit that sub button, turn on those post notifications, because every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, meta breakdowns, everything like that. Starting first at number 10 though, I've got the Bas-B. This thing I feel like definitely has fallen out of the limelight per se. It doesn't have all eyes on it anymore, but statistically this thing can still hold its own incredibly well, especially when you get into that mid-range and long-range type of engagement. This thing's TTK and ability to just knock players back to back to back is definitely up there with the best of the best. Initially, per usual, my mid to long range guns are running that 2.5 times eagle eye optic, nice clear optic here, great for visibility downrange, and just makes the gun easy to use and consistent in those types of engagements. 45 round extended mag, not a ton of ammo, but the fire rate here does not go crazy, so you're not going to worry about running out of ammo too much here. Bruen heavy underbarrel, of course, using this for that better horizontal control and gun kick makes the weapon a lot more predictable, but then also adding in the idle sway and firing aiming stability that this gives you makes it even more predictable, so that's a win-win there. Spirit fire suppressor, obviously using something like the Jack BFB was the go-to in the past, but really since the nerfs with this, the decreases to its velocity, that's a huge part there, but then also how much it slows you down, not really worth it anymore. I feel like the weapon is totally usable just with the Spirit fire, with the slight added control there and the better range and velocity as well. Then we got the Venom long barrel, better range, better velocity, better control, a little bit of better idle sway as well, so again just making the weapon a lot easier and more efficient in the mid to long range. Bas-B firmly sitting in that 10 spot. Now at number 9, I've got the MCW 6.8, probably the highest skill gap weapon on the list here today, but it's also one of the most rewarding easily. This thing's long range TTK is relatively unmatched by the vast majority of weapons on this list and also just in the game right now. Problem is that it is semi-auto. It takes a lot more skill to use this thing effectively, but if you were good at the interceptor back when the game first launched, you shouldn't struggle too much with this. It's a lot more forgiving than the interceptor, just not as broken as that one was, right? Initially here I got the 2.5 times eagle eye optic yet again on here. We got the assault stock, just helps out general control when you're spamming it, just makes it a little bit more reliable and really not any noticeable cons there for a mid to long range style weapon. The 60 round drum, which again in the past couple of weeks has been having some issues. Hopefully by the time this video goes up it'll be something that's resolved, but if this isn't loading in, oftentimes restarting your game or going over to multiplayer and trying again could fix it. But having 60 rounds as opposed to 15, 20, 30 like other marksmans might have is such a huge advantage. So that is an absolute W that this weapon brings to the table. Bruen heavy support, again consistent with that horizontal control if you're spamming, but on a semi-auto gun, the recentering capabilities that aiming idle sway and firing aim stability offer there are so clutch, which again just make the weapon much easier to use. And again we got that Spirit fire suppressor on there too, so high skill gap weapon, but also incredibly rewarding. Now at number 8, I've got the BP50. This is very much so a Swiss Army knife of a rifle, right? Technically speaking, it has one of the best TTKs in the rifle category over long range. However, I find it to be the most effective as an aggressive rifle, really based around mid-range gameplay and maybe some early long range in there, just because the magazine capacity here, the damage per mag, is going to be a lot more noticeable over long range, where you're just simply not going to be as accurate statistically speaking, but it is aggressive, it's agile, it's super easy to use, so it's checking all the right boxes here for sure. And depending on your level of comfortability with the gun and your general skill level, you can do incredibly well with this thing really wherever you want to use it at. Initially, again, I've got the Spirit fire suppressor, obviously we're based around the mid-range to long range there. I've got the lower 9 heavy barrel, helping out with that range, velocity control, a little bit of firing aiming stability, which is always great to see as well. Because we're based more around the mid-range, I do go for the glassless optic. I would use this in long range as well for what it's worth. It's just a matter matter of preference, this versus the 2.5 times optic versus something else, but the added firing aim stability here also makes this easier to use, plus it's a nice clean blue dot. The 45 round extended mag here, as mentioned, a little bit limiting. If we had a 50 or a 60, it'd be so much better, but 45 is what we got to work with, and it does the job okay for what it's worth. And then lastly, we got the Moat 40 stock helping out with some mobility, but also some control at the same time. So a little bit of a 2-for-1 there. Again, just making the weapon more versatile when it comes down to it. Love the feel of this thing, by far one of my personal favorites in the game. Now at number 7, I've got the KATT, still our one true ultimate one-shot sniper. The Stalker, it's a close contender, but it can only one-shot up to about a max of 81 meters depending on the build you're using, which just is not as versatile as the KATT. Now the KATT is heavier and slower, but you could technically, no scope headshot at 5 meters and get a one-shot knock, or ADS and bullet lead and get a one-shot knock at 250 meters. It's got that infinite one-shot damage range if you do hit a headshot, so that in and of itself inherently makes this the best sniper in the game. However, because it is a little bit more slow and clunky, I feel like the 7th spot is appropriate for it, I guess you could say. Initially, really all I'm going for here is velocity. The other added benefits are just bonus, like range doesn't really matter here. I just care about the 15% added velocity that the Nightfall suppressor gives me, and of course it keeps me off the radar as well. Zang 34 barrel, upping that velocity by another 10%. Then the high velocity ammo gives me another 20%, so I'm just up over 1,000. That's pretty reliable for a one-shot sniper. You won't have to work too hard to bullet lead or adjust for bullet drop. That'll still be super consistent. I've got the tac pad stock for a better ADS speed, and then lastly I go for the quick bolt here just behind the face cam. This is going to allow me to get shots off faster back to back to back, so I can get my cleanup. I can go through and get that secondary shot off if I need rather quickly, so that's nice and convenient there. Really solid sniper setup. I just wish there was more competition within the category. And number 6 here, I've got the Ram 9. This has seen some adjustments as of late, but it's still a top contender in the SMG category in specific. I personally love the feel of this thing. It's basically the Ram 7, but as an SMG. Relatively easy to use, clean iron sights, decent mobility. It could be better in terms of like sprint to fire, but overall, if you're landing upper body shots in a close range fight, this will be one of your best bets for winning that gunfight. I do use the M35 compensator, helps out with that control a little bit, makes it a little bit more predictable, has a shorter radar ping than a normal unsuppressed weapon there, which is nice to see as well, and adds in some firing aim stability. I do go for the light barrel, extends that range out some. That's really what I care about there. Allows it to compete a little bit more with some of those other top tier SMGs that we'll be getting to here in just a moment, with that effective damage range being out to almost 12.5 meters there. DR6 hand stop to speed things back up a little bit, get a better sprint to fire on there, better strafe speed, ADS speed and whatnot, so that's pretty clutch. Your basic 50 round extended mag, and then personally, while it is slowing you down some, I like the feel of the 3.4 pad stock. I feel like if I can get a faster sprint to fire, that's awesome, but if it's making me less accurate and I'm missing a couple of extra shots, then I'm not going to win the gunfight anyways. 3.4 pad adds in some consistency here. Still not too slow. You just have to be a little bit more mindful of playing with your sights up in some of those close range situations, but it makes the gun a little bit easier to use as well. Overall, still love the feel of this, although it has been nerfed a bit here recently. Hey everyone, real quick, want to give a shout out to my friends over at Control Freak. I've been using Control Freaks for what feels like forever, honestly, and really I feel like I can't play without them because of what they bring to the table. With their performance thumbsticks, you get a better range of motion and better grip on your thumbsticks themselves. Their precision rings offer even more potential aim upgrades, and if you want the ultimate handle on your controller, they've got grips for that too. Like, we're talking the ultimate controller loadout here. If you ever want to grab a pair of Control Freaks or any of the accessories, be sure to throw in code Immortal at checkout for a nice discount. The link for that will be down in the description below if you're interested. Now, probably my favorite feeling SMG at the moment is the HRM9, and that's what I've got here at the number 5 spot. This thing flies and fries, especially with this build. I'm just having so much fun with this as of late, right? So again, I've got the ZEM35 compensator, making it a lot easier to use. I go for the Thorn 90 barrel, speeds things up with your general sprint speed, your ADS speed, your sprint to fire. Also helps out with that hip fire as well if you're transitioning from hip fire into ADS in the close range. Always nice to do because you can land a couple of extra shots as you are getting your sights down, and that could help you win the gunfight there. DR6 hand stop yet again for the mobility benefits. We got the 50 round drum on there. Then I go for the hatchet light stock, better strafe speed, general movement speed, slightly faster ADS speed as well. So this thing is aggressive. It's got an insane mobility stat across the board, whether you're talking strafe or ADS or movement or sprint to fire, and it also has the TTK to to back that up as well. So best of both worlds here. So much fun to use. Now at number 4, I've got the AMR9, and I have this just up here because the TTK in and of itself, it is so much better than every other sub in the game that I feel like it has to get its credit for that. Its mobility is nowhere near as good as the HMR9 or even the RAM9, which isn't phenomenal as we were talking about, but it's just putting enemies down so much faster that as long as you got your sights up, there's a good chance you're gonna win the fight with this thing, right? Initially, I got that Zem 35 compensator yet again. I go for this skeletal vertical grip here because it's gonna help out that sprint to fire, making that faster, which is obviously very clutch, but also a little bit of control at the same time as well. So checking a 2-for-1 there, that's nice to have on there. 50 round extended mag there. The buffer tube stock helps out a ton with mobility across the board, sprint to fire and ADS, your general mobility stats as well. And then either you can go for an optic here, the MK3 reflectors, solid NIDAR, a glassless, whatever the case may be. If you don't like the irons, if you do like the irons, you could switch that out for the phantom rear grip. That's going to give you another 24% increase to your sprint to fire. That's going to be huge for playing aggressive with this. It's just a matter of preference though. Do you like the phantom rear grip and that sprint to fire more? Are you okay with the iron sights, or would you rather have that optic on there? Just weigh the balance there with the pros and cons and what works best for you, and then go forth and wreak havoc on your enemies. Now at number 3, I've got the Ram 7. Really the only place this gun is lacking is the long range, you know, beyond 50, 60, 70 meters. And even then it's comparable to a lot of other rifles. Whereas in the close and mid range, nothing compares to it. It is by far and away the fastest TTK rifle in those areas. So good for resurgence gameplay or just aggressive gameplay on the big map. This thing's got you covered. It's also relatively easy to use and pretty aggressive, even though we are building this for some mid-range and long-range efficiency, right? So Spirit Fire Suppressor yet again. I go for the Core Mark 40 heavy barrel. However, Headwind is also very good. Headwind's not going to give you as much direct control, but it's going to give you better range of velocity and some firing aim stability. So either or here would work just fine. Bruen heavy support yet again, no surprises there. The 60 round extended mag, and then I also go for the 3.4 pad stock, in this case helping out that general recoil control yet again, so making the gun easy to use with very minimal mobility cons there. Really hasn't changed all that much in the past couple of seasons. The RAM has been dominant. Now at number 2, I've got the new SOA Subverter from Season 2 Reloaded. This thing has one of the best TTKs in the game. It absolutely melts. It's also relatively easy to use. It's got a bit of an S-curve recoil pattern. We do attack that some with the attachments on here to make it a tad bit easier to use. Clean iron sights as well. Like, this thing is so much fun, so reliable, and it puts players down quickly, which obviously is super important as well. So to attack that horizontal pattern with the S curve there, I do go for the Cassis break. It goes all in on that horizontal recoil and a little bit of firing aim stability as well, which is nice to see. We got the Dozer 90 long barrel, better range, velocity, and control here. A little bit of firing aim stability there too, so making it even more consistent and reliable. Bruen heavy support also attacks the horizontal control, so that's a huge benefit there, plus firing aim stability and aiming idle sway. We got the 50 round drum on there, and then lastly I go for the heavy stock. Again, just helps out with that general recoil there across the board. This thing, whether you're playing Resurgence or the big map, is going to be a laser beam, and it's going to knock enemies back to back to back extremely efficiently. And then lastly here at number 1, I've got the Bruen LMG, and quite frankly it was hard not to include some other LMGs on this list. I think you could absolutely make a case for the DG58 being up here, maybe as a replacement to some of the rifles. Same deal with the Holger 26. Like, those absolutely could be in the top 10 as well if you wanted to focus specifically on just mid to long range efficiency and what would work well there. You've got cases for all those. To me though, the Bruen is still standing out as that number 1 LMG just because it's got the best TTK pretty much at all ranges. It's incredibly easy to use and also fairly aggressive for an LMG, really making it feel a lot more similar to those other options while maintaining that good TTK and sort of bridging the gap between an assault rifle and an LMG hybrid. Here I got the Spirit Fire Suppressor, standard as always. For the barrel, I'd say it depends a little bit more on the map you're playing. If you're playing the big map, I'd probably go for the Horizon barrel. Helps out with that control, and so in some of those longer range fights you'll be a tad bit more accurate. If you're playing Resurgence though, Ferocity barrel doesn't help as much with the control, makes that effective damage range even better, helps out some with the velocity there. So just depends on what style of gameplay you're more into. That's how I'd build it out with the barrel there. Everything else will be the same though. Bruen heavy support on here. We downgrade from 100 rounds to the 60 round mag, makes it a tad bit faster and more aggressive across the board, obviously with the handling a ton there. And of course this is what makes it feel more like an assault rifle over anything else. And then also the 2.5 times eagle eye optic on there yet again. quite frankly, narrowing this list down to a top 10 is pretty tough. We've got a lot of great meta options right now across the board. Like I said, not having specifically a DG58 or a Holger in here, the Wasp 9, the Striker 9, also close contenders, the SVA, the Holger 556. There's so many honorable mentions we could get into as well if we wanted this video to be, you know, 25-30 minutes long. But that said, I think this is a pretty solid top 10. You choose any of these, you pair up any of these, you're gonna have a successful time in game. That is gonna wrap things up. If you enjoyed the video, do me a favor and drop a like on it. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button on your way out. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy. Have an awesome rest of your day. I'll catch you later. Peace out.